Hello guys, this is the Daily Hoof. If you love horses, or you're learning about horse care, you're in the right place. Today we're focusing on something every horse owner or handler needs to know, hoof cleaning. So let's head over to the barn and get started.
Good boy. Go away, pick it up.
In years past, it was theorized that deep heels was what caused these types of problems to occur. In reality, it's simply a symptom of this problem. So why do these heels get deep? Two reasons. Number one, the cow is producing more hoof horn to try to combat the problem, trying to heal that problem, to replace this hoof horn that's damaged. And the other, well, it's because she's putting more pressure toward her toe, which means less wear on the heels, so those claws are naturally going to get thicker. As we zoom in here, you can see there's some dark shading up behind this area. That means there's a whole nother layer that needs to come away here. We zoom in, you can see that a little better here. So let's get to work. We've got more to do. Now you'll notice with this one, there's several layers of separation here. What is that and why did that happen? Well, the natural response for the cow when she's got anything wrong with her hoof is to try to get that, to resolve that problem on her own. Her body will do that. The way that happens is that hoof will actually stop growing for a brief period of time. And then when it starts to grow again, you'll get a differentiation in layers, meaning there'll be a clear separation in those hoof layers. Ultimately, over time, what would happen then is that that hoof, as it would work its way out, that would fall away, and it would replace that inside with a brand new layer of hoof horn. However, in this case, this problem has been complicated by some little critters on the inside keeping it open. So even though that process happened, that new hoof horn began to grow, that too was faulty because of these little critters on the inside. And so, once again, she went through that same period of horn growth cessation, that stoppage of hoof horn growth, and a new layer started to form. Ultimately, that's why we have multiple layers here. So I'm just going to trim this away with the grinder, and then I'm going to go back to work. Those critters I was talking about, well, they're responsible for causing digital dermatitis, and we'll see that as we get in there. Even though we've already removed a couple of layers of separation, there is still yet another one to go, and it's underneath that where that digital dermatitis lies. This is always one of the more tricky parts of the trim because I know what's underneath that. I can actually smell it in this case. However, what I don't know is the extent of it underneath and how much is actually up against that hoof layer that I'm trying to remove. I know it's separated because I can see the shading, but I don't know what the lesion looks like underneath. So got to work my way through this very carefully until I can get a good look at it and see what actually is underneath there. You all will see that soon. If you're wondering what that beeping noise is in the background, it's actually the backup alarms on a couple of different vehicles. One is the skid steer that's actually cleaning the pen next to where I'm working, and the other is the backup alarm on the feed truck, which is feeding all these cows. This particular farm has about 1,100 head that are milking, an additional 600 of young stock in another barn. So there's a lot of cows to feed and a lot of barns to clean. And that's why we have the background noise. You're really able to see now the extent of that digital dermatitis infiltration into this area. I'll bet you didn't expect to see this when we first started. I know I didn't, and that's the thing. No matter how many of these you trim on, it's always a surprise what's going to lie underneath that. It could be the smallest mark in the sole with the smallest lesion, or it could be a gigantic mark in the sole with a huge lesion, or anything in between. You just have to be careful as you're working because it is unknown. What is known for certain is she is going to need a block on that other claw. We got two different things going on here. One, we've got digital dermatitis involved, but also it's on the medial claw, meaning there's no way for her to walk without taking pressure off of that medial claw, so we have to put a block on that lateral to do that. If it were on the lateral claw, sometimes she can just toe out, put the weight on the medial, and she can still get along. You could get way without putting a block on. But on the medial claw, there's no way for her to do that, so a block is absolutely essential in this case. But actually, based on the size of this, it would be essential in any case. Get a little bit closer view here, and you can see all of that dermatitis across that sole. You can see why this would have trouble healing. There's no way for that foot bath chemical to get in there to treat that digital dermatitis when you've got all those layers of hoof horn over the top of that. So we clear all that hoof horn away, and we're able to get this cleaned out really well now with chlorhexidine, put a salicylic acid wrap on, and this should heal up pretty well. Digital dermatitis can make this corium even more tender than it normally is. That's why just a little bit of spraying to clean it off can actually irritate it.